on Sunday. Two Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, both drafted in the first round in 2004, Eli Manning and Ben Roethlisberger, go head-to-head in the Steel City on Sunday. The Giants are off to their best start since 2008 at 8-3, second in the NFC East behind Dallas. As for those Steelers, after a 4-1 start, Pittsburgh is 2-4 in their last 6 games and currently out of the playoffs. But they are still tied for first in their division with the Ravens at 6-5. Stephen A., who gets the W at Heinz Field, the G-Men or the Men of Steel?
I'm rolling with the Steelers. You know me. I mean, listen, Mike Tomlin and the crew. That's who I'm rolling with. Big Ben Roethlisberger. That's who I'm rolling with. Le'Veon Bell. That's who I'm rolling with. Antonio Brown and Wheaton and the crew. That's who I'm rolling with. Not so much the secondary, of course, because I'm very, very concerned. I mean, the bottom line is, I look at the secondary, it's an entirely different ballgame altogether. Odell Beckham Jr. is going to scare the hell out of me. Eli Manning to Odell Beckham Jr. is going to scare the hell out of me. We saw what Ezekiel Elliott did with his speed against the Steelers. What the hell is Odell Beckham Jr. going to do? I mean, my Lord, I'm scared. I'm very, very scared. No doubt about it, okay? But I'm going to roll with the Steelers because it's in Pittsburgh. I don't believe that the Giants' defense is going to respond in kind to the offensive onslaught that I anticipate and expect to be delivered this Sunday starting at 4:25 Eastern Time. I'm going to roll with the Steelers to win this game because of all the aforementioned reasons, but not the secondary.
Look, your team is the Steelers, mine is the Giants. If the Giants didn't exist, my team would be the Steelers, and same thing for you. If the Steelers didn't exist, your team would be the Giants. So we're talking about two teams we like here. And I am a Giants fan first and foremost, obviously, right? And yet, that's not the reason I think they're going to win, I don't think. I think the Giants are going to win because they're better than the Steelers. I think the Giants are going to win because people have overestimated the Steelers since the preseason. There were a lot of people's Super Bowl picks. A lot of people's picks to either get out of the AFC or push the Broncos or the Pats.
How do you know this?
How do I know people picked that? Like the Steelers preseason?
How do you know this? How do you know this? I don't understand. How do you know this? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, this is the reality. And I know why, too, because last year you looked at that Steelers team and you said, man, if they can stay healthy, they could have the greatest offense of all time. When everyone was lauding the Pats, I and others, we're looking at the Steelers going, with that O-line, Roethlisberger, you mentioned everybody, Le'Veon Bell. Not only that, Martellus Bennett hadn't been suspended. You're going, and it never really quite worked out for them. So then going into this year, people are like, okay, now they're healthy. Now this will be the year it all works out, and they'll do these amazing things. No, it hasn't worked out that way. Bennett was suspended in the preseason, gone for the year, and they haven't quite had the season, especially on the offensive line, that they thought they were going to have. And the defense, hey, if they could just be bend and don't break, boy, if that's not broke, it's bending a whole lot. You look at the Giants, on the other hand, the offensive line is a problem. That's really the problem with the team. They spent all that money, however, they spent all that money on the defense, and it's paid dividends. They're winning the close games they lost last year. The front four has been good from the beginning. The corners have been really good from the beginning. The problem with the Giants earlier in the season is the middle of the defense was soft. The linebackers and the safeties. The linebackers have been playing better, and the safeties, especially Landon Collins, have been a revelation for the Giants. Suddenly you look at that defense and you go, they're coming together at the right time. Meantime, Shepard has been as good as advertised as a rookie. Don't forget they're coming off a win against a bad team in which Shepard wasn't targeted once. That ain't going to happen again. So how are those guys going to stop not only Odell, but Shepard and Eli and an incrementally improving offensive line when they're going up against a good defense? I just think the Giants are better than the Steelers, and I think they win this game.
Well, you can feel that way. Clearly, your emotions have something to do with it, regardless of how well you try to disguise it. In the end, what this comes down to is you believe in Eli Manning because you love yourself some Odell Beckham Jr. But let me tell you something right now. I love Odell, but I love Antonio Brown. And I think Big Ben Roethlisberger to Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh being 6-5, not having already virtually conceded their division to somebody else the way I believe the Giants probably have conceded the division to the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh.
They just I believe that. I believe that the Giants ultimately have conceded the division to the. I said it. I didn't stutter.
They beat the Cowboys
Giants
week 13. They're one game behind, and they got the tiebreaker.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't stutter. I think I was on the show when the Giants beat the Cowboys. I think I know that the Giants have beaten the Cowboys already. Mollywood, Max Spock, Kellerman, okay? The bottom line is, I believe that the Giants recognize the fact that they are fighting for a wild card spot because they're not going to catch the Cowboys, whereas the Steelers in the AFC North knows there's no wild card coming out of that division. Every game is pivotal. I think the elevated level of urgency works in the Steelers' favor in this particular matchup, and because of that, I believe, despite their secondary, certainly not because of it, that the Steelers will win this game.
You know nothing of Giants tradition if you think that's the case, Stephen A. Smith. That's not the nature of this team to give up on anything. Why, if they would have given up, they never would have beaten the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl.
I have factual evidence that you are. I have factual evidence that you are lying to the American people. The New York Giants gave up on a running game years ago.
Not true. They have not done very well drafting on the offensive line, but they've tried.
Struggled in the running game a little.
Flowers is very young. It could get better.
That's no knock against Rashad. That's
Eric,
no knock
could it
against
get better
him.
soon, please?
All right, but that's what it is.
I think the Giants are a better team than
the offensive line.
Look, they both have weaknesses. The Giants' main one is on the O-line. The Steelers have their main one is in the secondary. But in fact, given the Steelers' defense, the Giants' O-line is not as much of an issue as the Steelers' secondary is given the Giants' receivers. And the Giants are just better. They're 8-3. They've gotten a little bit lucky, but not that lucky.
The defense is better.
They're one of the better teams in football. And the Steelers aren't.
We shall see.
Oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. The Giants have won 5 of their last 6 in Pittsburgh. 4:25 Eastern, you said it starts? No one tried to talk to me or call me.
5 of their last 6 in Pittsburgh.
I'm not talking to anybody then.
That's even another reason why they're going to lose this Sunday.
Big blue.
It won't be 6 or 7.
39 seconds to go. Giants down by 4. Manning calling signals. Takes the snap. Looks left. Lobs it left. First is wide open. Touchdown Giants! Pittsburgh Morris was wide open. And the Giants are back on top with only 35 seconds remaining. In one of the biggest upsets in NFL history, the Giants have beaten the previously unbeaten Patriots and have won Super Bowl 42.
Oh, the good old days. Our next guest made that memorable touchdown catch that gave the Giants a huge upset win over those undefeated Patriots in Super Bowl 42. But before that, he was drafted by the Steelers with the 8th overall pick in 2000. So who better to talk about the G-Men and the Steelers matchup than former NFL wide receiver Plexico Burress. Plex, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Do the right thing, Plex. Do the right thing, Plex.
What's up, man? What's going on?
Do the right thing, Plex.
What's going on, brother?
You're going to be the tiebreaker here for us. I hope you know. So, of course, being a former NFL wide receiver, you know all about good pass catchers. Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham facing off Sunday. Who do you think has the edge?
Let me just start off by saying this. Max, maybe you can agree with me, Stephen A. Smith. It was a time when you would see guys like Jerry Rice and say that, Jerry Rice is the best receiver I've ever seen. Randy Moss is the greatest athlete wide receiver I've ever seen. His record will never be broken. And then you watch a guy like Calvin Johnson be the fastest wide receiver to ever get 10,000 yards in 115 games. And then you look at Antonio Brown, what he's doing, and Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. is the fastest wide receiver to 3,500 yards. And Antonio Brown is on his way to being 1,500 yards in 4 straight seasons. And the numbers that these guys are putting up is just simply mind-boggling. Having played the position and knowing how hard it is to do this job, and I just look at the body of work of what these two guys are doing. I just shake my head. But if I'm gonna take one wide receiver right now with the consistency, I'm gonna go with Antonio Brown.
I mean, I get that, Plex, based on the numbers in recent years. It's difficult to prove based on that stuff that Odell is better. You mentioned Jerry Rice, then you mentioned Randy Moss, then you mentioned Calvin Johnson, and those eras really are their eras, right? There were a lot of great receivers in those eras, including T.O., including you, including a lot of other receivers, but it was their world, right? My eyeballs tell me, and this includes Julio Jones, who just is mind-blowing when you watch him. I mean, all these receivers, whoever you saw last, that's who you think is best. but my eyeballs tell me that this is going to be the Odell Beckham Jr. era. I think this is the way we're going to remember that era. I think he's just more talented, Plex.
I wouldn't say more talented. I would say it's more 1A, 1B. You know, you can't just jump on a limb and say, you know, he's more talented. You know, I had a great opportunity of playing with Antonio Brown my last 2 years in Pittsburgh, 2012 and 2013, and you know, just to get to practice and you know, to watch the way that this guy works. And when you see the results on Sunday, you know where they come from because you witnessed it firsthand. So I'm not just going to jump out on a limb and say Odell Beckham Jr. is a better talent. You know, I'm just going to go with what I see and what I know personally, and what I saw with my own eyes being there 2 years and watching what he does every Sunday. I'm going to go with the consistency because I know what I'm going to get every Sunday from Antonio Brown.
Come out on a limb. It's good out here. It's nice out here.
Well,
try it.
Well, listen. Hold on, Max. I will go this way. Let me ask you this question: Big Ben or Eli? Because obviously somebody's throwing those brothers the football, and you were there, both of them throwing the football to you. We talked about this yesterday. Who would we want, etc., and why? How do you view both quarterbacks? Just like we're asking you about Antonio and Odell, what about Big Ben and Eli?
Well, you know, you guys kind of throwing me on the bus over here. But you know, I'll say this.
I'm just asking you a question.
Listen, man, when Eli Manning was drafted, there was kind of an expectation level. When Ben Roethlisberger was drafted into Pittsburgh, nobody foresaw, you know, the career that he's having now. And both of these guys are two-time world champions, you know, MVPs of that nature. And I always say that, you know, Ben goes out and gets the job done. He wins ugly. You know, they don't really, you know, criticize him as much as Eli being up here in the media market, but having played with both of them, they basically have identical stats, identical numbers. You really can't say right now who is having a better career.
With the chips on the line, Plex, you're in the game. Who do you want under center trying to get you the ball, Eli or Big Ben?
Hey, I love both of these guys, man. They're great quarterbacks, two future Hall of Famers. And I've done it with Eli on that stage, so I know what he's capable of doing, and also Ben Roethlisberger. But I'm going to go with number 10 because I know he's going to put it up there in a nice spot for me to go up and get it. And, you know, he's going to give me that wink or that signal, or he's going to grab his face mask or pat his thigh or pat the side of his helmet and give me the signal for the best route for me to get open.
Yeah, people forget that Tyree throw was amazing, but the winning touchdown pass was to Plexico Burress. Without that, they don't win the Super Bowl. Sorry, Stephen A.
Without David Tyree, there's no Plexico Burress either.
Well, let me ask you this question, because as we sit here and we try to dissect the differences between two quarterbacks, the responsibility that is on Eli's shoulders clearly appears to be more, because the Giants, at least in recent memory, have not had the running game that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had. But then people look at Big Ben Roethlisberger and they see the hits that he takes, the punishment that he's had to absorb, which is different to some degree, inexplicably, I might add, to what Eli Manning has had to deal with, because Eli Manning is the one that's had a suspect offensive line. How do you gauge that? How do you look at what both quarterbacks have had to deal with and have had to endure en route to being as great as they obviously are now?
I mean, clearly Ben Roethlisberger is, one of the, if not the toughest quarterback in the NFL. By far who I played with as far as toughness. And he missed 4 games last year. And then you go back to Antonio Brown, the numbers that he had. Antonio Brown had over 1,300 yards when Ben Roethlisberger missed 4 games. So what would he have done if Ben would have played all 16? But it's definitely, Ben's missed some time over his career. He likes to extend his plays. Guys get wrapped up on his legs and sacks and getting it out of the pocket and extended plays. So he's definitely, have taken a beating over his career more than Eli Manning. And the Giants organization absolutely do a great job of, putting guys in front of them so that they can protect them. If you don't have Eli Manning, you don't have a contender to played during the season.
Plex, before we let you go, who you got Sunday and why?
I'm going to go with the New York Giants for this reason. I believe the defense is playing better. JPP is kind of getting back to his old self. Landon Collins is no doubt the MVP of that defense, probably of the team. And with the Dallas Cowboys coming in next week, I think it's a great barometer for the New York Giants to go out and make a statement game. It's not easy to win in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh knows that they have to get this game also. But, you know, it's the NFC East. And the Giants can pretty much, you know, control their own destiny. They go out and get this win Sunday against the Steelers, and knowing that they have the Dallas Cowboys coming into New Jersey next weekend, I believe there's 2 games that they can win. They can go on a run, and they pretty much control their own destiny. They understand that, and we have done it before, going on runs in December. You know, playing with a sense of urgency and knowing that they have to get these 2 games that they want to, you know, be a number 1 seed or what have you, and get to the playoffs.
Well, last question. How bad do the Giants want the Cowboys in your estimation? I mean, is it, and I know it's an NFC East rival. I know that they're going to want to beat them based on that alone, plus they're trying to get to the playoffs. But could you give us some insight into how all this noise about the Cowboys this year is possibly affecting the Giants?
You know what? I think the Giants like it that way. Nobody's really talking about it. Everybody's talking about America's team. Everybody's talking about the Dallas Cowboys, what Dak Prescott is doing, what Ezekiel Elliott is doing. They got him rated number 1 MVP and Rookie of the Year and all those kind of things. But nobody's talking about the New York Giants, and they're just quietly just flying under the radar, you know, stacking up wins. And, you know, these next 2 weeks is going to tell a lot about this football team, and I think they understand that. And probably, you know, behind the scenes, they're sitting back. You know, they love it. You know, they're in a great position to make a run, to beat these 2 teams in the next couple of weeks, and they wouldn't have it any other way.
No question. I like it. Plex, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.